The alien ship landed in Washington, D.C. on a bright spring morning. It was nothing like the invasion movies that humans had watched for decades. The vessel was smooth and white, shaped like a giant flower petal. When the aliens stepped out, they looked more like friendly professors than conquerors. Dr. Corinne Blake stood at the edge of the landing zone, watching history unfold. She was a bug scientist, someone who had spent her whole life studying insects. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined that aliens would be interested in her work. The leader of the alien group was tall and thin, with pale green skin and large, gentle eyes. He wore robes that looked like they were made from flower petals. When he spoke, his voice was soft and musical. "Greetings, people of Earth," he said through a small device that translated his words. "I am Research Coordinator Zephalon of the Veltharian Science Collective. We come in peace to learn about your world." Dr. Blake stepped forward with the other scientists. She had been chosen to represent Earth's knowledge of insects. The aliens had specifically asked to learn about flying bugs, especially the pretty ones that lived near water. "We are honored to meet you," she said. "I'm Dr. Corinne Blake. I study insects for a living." Zephalin's eyes lit up with excitement. "Insects?" "Yes, we are very curious about your flying creatures. On our world, we have beautiful beings that dance through the air near our water places. They eat sweet flower juice and never harm anything. We hope your creatures are similar." Dr. Blake smiled. The aliens seemed so peaceful and kind. Their world sounded like a paradise where nothing bad ever happened. She wondered how they would react to Earth's insects, which were quite different. From what they described, Captain Roy Martinez stood nearby, wearing his military uniform. He was supposed to be the security officer for this meeting, but it seemed silly. These aliens were clearly not dangerous. They reminded him of kindergarten teachers, gentle and curious about everything. "What kind of flying insects would you like to see first?" Dr. Blake asked. "We would love to observe your most graceful and beautiful aerial dancers," Zephalin replied, "especially the ones with 4 wings that hover over water. Your data transmissions showed images of creatures you call dragonflies. They look very similar to our beloved sky dancers." Dr. Blake nodded enthusiastically. Dragonflies were some of her favorite insects to study. They were amazing creatures, though she suspected the aliens might not understand just how amazing they really were. "We have prepared a special facility at the Natural History Museum," she explained. "We can show you live dragonflies and many other flying insects." The alien science team consisted of 6 individuals, all of them as gentle and peaceful as their leader. They carried equipment that looked more like art supplies than scientific instruments. Everything was curved and smooth, with no sharp edges or aggressive angles. Dr. Linda Foster, the museum director, joined the group as they walked toward the building. She had worked with Dr. Blake to prepare the insect displays. They had chosen the most beautiful specimens, thinking the aliens would appreciate pretty creatures. "Your museum is wonderful," said one of the alien scientists, whose name sounded like musical notes when translated. "It feels very peaceful. On our world, we build similar places to honor the beauty of living things." Dr. Blake was starting to understand that these aliens came from a very different kind of world than Earth. They seemed to think that all life was gentle and beautiful. She wondered if they had any dangerous creatures on their planet at all. "Tell me about your sky dancers," she asked as they walked through the museum halls. Zephalin's expression became dreamy and happy. "They are the most beautiful creatures in our world. They have wings like colored glass that catch the sunlight. They spend their days sipping nectar from flowers and performing graceful aerial ballets over our lakes. Sometimes they gather in groups of thousands, creating living rainbows in the sky. Do they ever hurt other creatures?" Dr. Blake asked carefully. The alien looked confused. His translator made strange beeping sounds, as if it couldn't understand the question. Hurt? I do not understand this concept in relation to sky dancers. They are gentle beings who bring joy and beauty to our world. Why would they cause harm? Dr. Blake exchanged a glance with Dr. Foster. This was going to be interesting. The aliens clearly had no concept of predatory behavior. On their world, it seemed like all creatures were herbivores that lived in perfect harmony. Well, Dr. Blake said slowly, our dragonflies are different. They're beautiful, but they also hunt other insects. Again, the translator made confused. Sounds? Zephyrin tilted his head like a puzzled dog. Hunt? This word is not translating properly. Do you mean they search for flowers to feed from? Captain Martinez stepped closer, sensing that something important was happening. As a military man, he understood hunting and predation. But he was beginning to realize that these aliens might not have those concepts in their vocabulary at all. Not exactly, Dr. Blake said. They catch and eat other flying insects. They're actually very good at it. The alien science team gathered around Zephyrin, chattering in their musical language. Their translator worked frantically, trying to make sense of what Dr. Blake had said. Finally, Zephyrin spoke again. Our translation systems must be malfunctioning. It sounds like you are saying that beautiful, graceful creatures consume other living beings. This cannot be correct. Dr. Foster decided to try a different approach. Why don't we just show you the insects? Sometimes seeing is better than explaining. The aliens agreed eagerly, still convinced that there was simply a translation problem. They followed the humans deeper into the museum, toward the insect research facility. None of them suspected that they were about to witness something that would completely change their understanding of life in the universe. Dr. Blake walked beside Zephyrin, trying to think of how to prepare him for what he was about to see. How? Do you explain death and violence to beings who have never experienced either? How do you describe predation to creatures who think all life is gentle and cooperative? She decided to let the dragonflies speak for themselves. As they approached the research facility, Dr. Blake couldn't help but feel excited. She was about to show some of Earth's most amazing creatures to beings from another world. The aliens were expecting to see gentle flower feeders like their sky dancers. Instead, they were about to meet some of the most efficient killers in Earth's history. The insect research facility was a wonder of modern science. Glass cases lined the walls, each one containing different types of flying insects. The lighting was perfect, designed to make the creatures look as beautiful as possible. Dr. Blake had spent days preparing for this moment. Welcome to our flying insect collection, she said proudly. We'll start with some of the more gentle species first. The alien scientists pressed close to the first display case, which contained several monarch butterflies. Their large eyes grew even wider with delight as they watched the orange and black wings flutter slowly through the artificial garden. "Oh, these are wonderful!" exclaimed Zephyrin. "They are almost exactly like our flower dancers. So graceful and peaceful." Dr. Blake smiled. The butterflies were indeed peaceful creatures. They spent their lives drinking nectar and laying eggs, never bothering anyone. The aliens seemed completely at ease watching them. "And here are our bees," Dr. Foster said, moving to the next case. The Veltharian scientists watched the bees with fascination. The insects moved from flower to flower in their display, collecting pollen and nectar. The aliens nodded approvingly, clearly recognizing behavior similar to their own world's creatures. "Bees are very important on our planet," Dr. Blake explained. "They help plants reproduce by carrying pollen between flowers. We consider them beneficial insects." "Beneficial," Zephyrin repeated, seeming to like the word. "Yes, this makes sense. All creatures should benefit the world around them. This is how life should be." Professor Andy Clark joined the group from his position at the university. He was an expert on insect behavior and had been excited to meet the aliens. Like everyone else, he found their peaceful nature charming. "Now," Dr. Blake said, moving toward the larger display at the end of the room, "I'd like to show you our dragonflies." The aliens hurried forward eagerly. Through the clear walls of the large terrarium, they could see several dragonflies hovering near. A small artificial pond. The insects were beautiful, with wings that caught the light like stained glass windows. "Magnificent," breathed Zephyrin. "They look almost identical to our sky dancers. See how they hover so gracefully? Their wings shimmer with all the colors of the rainbow." Dr. Amy Watson, a facilities behavior specialist, stood ready to explain what they were seeing. She had studied dragonfly hunting behavior for years and knew exactly how impressive these creatures really were. "They are beautiful," she agreed. "But they're also quite different from your sky dancers." "How so?" asked one of the alien scientists, a female whose name translated to something like singing water. "Well, for one thing, they don't eat flour. Nectar," Dr. Watson explained carefully. "They're carnivores." The alien translator made its confused beeping sound again. The Veltharians looked puzzled, as if the machine had spoken gibberish. "Carnivores?" Zephyrin repeated slowly. "This word is not translating correctly. Could you explain what this means?" Dr. Blake realized they were about to cross a bridge that couldn't be uncrossed. Once these peaceful aliens understood what carnivore meant, their view of Earth would never be the same. "It means they eat other animals," she said simply. "In this case, they eat other insects." The aliens stared at her in silence. Their translators worked frantically, making soft whirring sounds as they tried to process this information. Finally, Zephyrin spoke. "Eat ... other ... living creatures?" Each word seemed to cause him physical pain. "This cannot be natural behavior. Perhaps these dragonflies are sick or modified by your technology." Professor Clark stepped forward to help explain. "No, this is completely natural. Dragonflies have been eating other insects for millions of years. They're actually very good at it." "But they're so beautiful," whispered Singing Water. "How can something so lovely cause harm to other living beings?" Captain Martinez watched the aliens' reaction with growing interest. As a military officer, he was trained to observe and analyze. What he was seeing was a complete worldview collapse happening in real time. "Would you like to see them hunt?" Dr. Watson asked innocently. "We can release some fruit flies and watch the dragonflies catch them." The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. Their curiosity was fighting with their growing horror at what they were learning about Earth's creatures. "Hunt?" Zephyrin asked weakly. "You mean ... search for food?" "Sort of," Dr. Blake said. "But hunting involves catching and killing prey. The dragonflies will chase down the fruit flies and eat them." The word killing caused all the alien translators to emit alarm sounds simultaneously. The Veltharians stepped back from the display. Case as if the dragonflies might suddenly break free and attack them. "Killing is not possible," Zephyrin said firmly. "Living creatures do not kill other living creatures. This is against all natural law." Dr. Foster exchanged a worried look with the other humans. They were beginning to understand that these aliens came from a world so peaceful that the concept of death by violence simply didn't exist in their experience. "On our world," Dr. Blake said gently, "many creatures survive by eating other creatures. It's been that way for millions of years. It's how evolution works. Evolution toward violence?" Singing Water asked in horror. "On our world, evolution moves toward greater harmony and cooperation. Creatures become more beautiful and peaceful over time, not more ... dangerous." Professor Clark tried to provide some scientific context. "Competition for resources drives evolution on Earth. Creatures that are better at finding food and avoiding Being eaten survived to have offspring. Avoiding being eaten? Zephyrin repeated faintly. You mean some creatures actually consume others? And this is normal? Very normal, Dr. Watson confirmed. In fact, dragonflies are some of our most efficient hunters. They catch about 95% of everything they chase. The number hit the aliens like a physical blow. On their world, the most successful creatures at finding food had maybe a 30% success rate, and that just involved competing for the best fruit trees. 95%? Zephyrin whispered. That is not hunting. That is ... that is ... His translator struggled for several seconds before finally producing a word that made all the aliens gasp in unison. Warfare, the machine said coldly. The humans looked confused. They had never thought of dragonfly hunting as warfare. It was just nature doing what nature did. Should we still do the demonstration? Dr. Watson asked uncertainly. The aliens huddled together, speaking rapidly in their musical language. After several minutes of discussion, Zephyrin turned back to the humans. We must observe this behavior, he said solemnly. If we are to understand your world, we must see the truth, no matter how disturbing it may be. Dr. Watson nodded and moved to a control panel. I'll release a small group of fruit flies into the terrarium. The dragonflies will hunt them naturally. Captain Martinez found himself holding his breath. He had watched dragonflies hunt thousands of times without thinking much about it. But seeing it through the eyes of these peaceful aliens was making him realize just how violent and efficient the process really was. Are you ready? Dr. Watson asked. The aliens nodded nervously, clustering together like scared children about. To watch a horror movie. Dr. Watson pressed a button, and a dozen fruit flies were released into the terrarium. What happened next would haunt the Valtharian scientists for the rest of their lives. The fruit flies entered the terrarium like tiny dancers, unaware of the death that waited for them. They flew in random patterns, searching for food, completely oblivious to the 3 dragonflies hovering motionlessly near the artificial pond. For a moment, nothing happened. The dragonflies seemed to ignore the new arrivals, hanging in the air like living jewels. The aliens began to relax slightly, thinking perhaps the beautiful creatures would not harm the smaller insects. Then everything changed in an instant. The largest dragonfly moved so fast that the human eye could barely follow it. But the movement wasn't random or chaotic like the fruit flies. It was calculated, precise, and utterly deadly. Zephyrin watched in growing horror as the dragonfly didn't chase its target. Instead, it flew directly to where the fruit fly was going. The interception was so perfect that it looked like the dragonfly had used some kind of advanced computer to calculate the exact trajectory. How is this possible? He whispered. Dr. Watson was watching the alien reactions as much as the hunting behavior. Dragonflies have compound eyes with up to 30,000 individual lenses. They can see in almost every direction at once and track multiple targets simultaneously. The second dragonfly struck while she was speaking. Again, the attack was not a chase, but an interception. The dragonfly had somehow predicted exactly where its prey would be and arrived there first. The fruit fly never had a chance to change direction or escape. It's like they can see the future, breathed Singing Water, her voice shaking. Professor Clark tried to explain the science behind what they were seeing. They process visual information incredibly fast. Their brains can calculate the flight path of prey and determine the optimal intercept point in milliseconds. The third dragonfly demonstrated something even more terrifying. Instead of hunting alone, it seemed to coordinate with the others. When a fruit fly tried to escape one dragonfly by flying upward, the second dragonfly was already waiting above. When another fruit fly dove toward the water to escape, the third dragonfly cut off its retreat. They're working together, Captain Martinez observed with professional admiration. Like a fighter squadron. The aliens were beyond speech now. In less than 30 seconds, half the fruit flies had been eliminated with surgical precision. There was no wasted motion, no missed attacks, no mercy for the desperate evasion attempts of the prey. Dr. Kevin Ross, a specialist in predator behavior, arrived just in time to witness the finale of the hunt. He had studied these insects for years, but seeing them through alien eyes made him appreciate their lethal efficiency in a new way. The remaining fruit flies are trying to escape now, he explained to the traumatized aliens. Watch how the dragonflies respond. The surviving fruit flies had realized their danger and were flying erratically, desperately trying to reach the safety of the terrarium walls. But the dragonflies anticipated every move. They didn't chase the panicked insects. They simply positioned themselves at every possible escape route. It's not hunting, Zephyrin said in a voice filled with horror. It's systematic elimination. The largest dragonfly caught 2 fruit flies in rapid succession, moving between targets so quickly that it seemed to teleport. Its compound eyes tracked every remaining insect, while its brain calculated optimal attack sequences. How many targets can they track at once? Asked one of the alien scientists, his voice barely audible. Scientists have observed dragonflies tracking up to 30 different prey items simultaneously, Dr. Ross replied. They can plan multiple attacks in sequence while avoiding obstacles and coordinating with other dragonflies. The demonstration reached its horrific conclusion as the last fruit fly was caught trying to hide behind a plant leaf. The dragonfly had somehow known exactly where the insect was hiding and struck with pinpoint accuracy. Total time elapsed, 97 seconds. Total fruit flies released, 12. Total survivors, 0. The silence in the room was deafening. The aliens stared at the terrarium, where the dragonflies had returned to their peaceful hovering, looking once again like harmless, beautiful creatures. But the Veltharians now knew the truth about Earth's gentle sky dancers. 95% success rate, Zephyrin whispered. You said 95%, but this was 100%. Dr. Blake nodded grimly. We were actually conservative with our estimate. In ideal conditions, dragonflies approach perfect hunting efficiency. Perfect killing efficiency, Singing Water corrected, her voice hollow. The alien scientists huddled together, speaking in their musical language. But their voices were no longer beautiful. They sounded like funeral songs, full of grief and shock. We need to contact our homeworld immediately, Zephyrin announced. What we have witnessed challenges everything we understand about biological development. Captain Martinez stepped forward, concerned about the aliens' obvious distress. Are you all right? Should we stop the demonstration? No, Zephyrin said firmly. We must understand the full truth. Tell us more about these creatures. Dr. Ross cleared his throat. Well, dragonflies are actually ancient insects. They've been perfecting their hunting techniques for over 300 million years. 300 million years of developing killing efficiency, one of the aliens repeated in horror. And they're not even the most dangerous insects on Earth, Professor Clark added helpfully. The aliens turned to stare at him with expressions of pure terror. Not the most dangerous? Singing Water, whispered Dr. Watson, realized they might have made a mistake. These peaceful beings were already traumatized by seeing dragonflies hunt. Learning about wasps, spiders, or army ants might cause complete psychological breakdown. Perhaps we should focus on dragonflies for now, she suggested quickly. But Cephalon was determined to understand the full scope of what they were dealing with. You said these creatures have been developing their abilities for 300 million years. Have they reached the peak of their evolution? Dr. Blake exchanged nervous glances with her colleagues. Actually, prehistoric dragonflies were much larger. Some had wingspans of over 2 feet and probably hunted small vertebrates. Vertebrates? The alien translator struggled with the concept. Animals with backbones. Like birds or small reptiles or... Dr. Blake paused, realizing where this was. Heading. Or small mammals. The implications hit the aliens like a physical blow. These beautiful creatures had once been large enough to hunt animals the size of their own young. Why did they become smaller? Cephalin asked faintly. Oxygen levels in. The atmosphere changed, Professor Clark explained. If oxygen levels were higher, dragonflies could potentially grow large again. Captain Martinez watched the aliens process this information. He could see them imagining giant dragonflies with the same hunting efficiency they had just witnessed, capable of taking down larger prey. But even at their current size, Dr. Ross continued, they're still apex predators in their environment. Nothing that flies is safe from a dragonfly. Nothing? Singing Water asked weakly. Nothing. They hunt mosquitoes, flies, moths, bees, wasps, other dragonflies, flying ants, flying termites, and even small butterflies. The mention of butterflies seemed to break something in the aliens. They had just been admiring the peaceful monarchs, thinking they were safe, gentle creatures like those on their homeworld. The butterflies are also prey? Cephalin asked in despair. Everything that flies is either a predator or prey on Earth, Dr. Blake said simply. Usually both. The Velthurian scientists looked around the room at all the display cases they had. Admired earlier. Suddenly, the beautiful insect collection looked like a gallery of weapons and victims. Your entire world, Cephalin said slowly, is engaged in constant warfare. The humans looked at each other uncertainly. They had never thought of their planet that way, but from the aliens' perspective, it probably did look like a world at war. It's just nature, Dr. Watson said defensively. It's how life works here. This is not how life works, Singing Water replied firmly. This is how death works. The demonstration was over, but its impact was just beginning. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to find creatures like their peaceful sky dancers. Instead, they had discovered that even the most beautiful insects were precision-engineered killing machines. And this was just the beginning of their education about life on the death world called Earth. The Velthurian science team requested an emergency communication link with their homeworld. What they had witnessed in the terrarium had shaken them to their core, and they needed guidance from their leaders about how to process this disturbing new information. The communication device they used looked like a flower made of crystal. It projected a 3-dimensional image of their home planet's High Council, a group of elderly Velthurians who had spent centuries studying the peaceful sciences. Honored Council, Cephalin began, his voice trembling. We have made a discovery that challenges everything we understand about biological development. The eldest council member, whose name translated to Wisdom of Ages, leaned forward with concern. Speak, young researcher. What has troubled you so deeply? The creatures on Earth that appear similar to our sky dancers are not gentle flower feeders. Cephalin explained. They are precision killing machines with hunting success rates that exceed our most advanced military targeting systems. The council members looked confused. Their translators were having the same problems that had plagued the research team. Killing machines? Wisdom of Ages repeated. Young Cephalon, I fear the stress of interplanetary travel has affected your reasoning. Beautiful flying creatures cannot be weapons. Dr. Blake stepped forward to help explain. Respected Council, I understand this is difficult to accept. Your world appears to have evolved very differently from ours. On Earth, many creatures survive by hunting other creatures. Hunting, the council member repeated slowly. This word keeps appearing in our translations, but it makes no logical sense. How can one creature consume another living being? Professor Clark attempted to provide scientific context. On our planet, competition for resources has driven evolution toward greater efficiency in food acquisition. Some species evolved to consume plant matter, while others evolved to consume other animals. The council members exchanged worried glances. The concept of animals eating other animals was so foreign to them that they couldn't process it properly. "Show us," demanded Wisdom of Ages. "We must see this impossible behavior for ourselves." Dr. Watson hesitated. The live demonstration had already traumatized the research team. Showing it to the leadership of an entire peaceful civilization might cause widespread panic. "Perhaps we should start with recorded footage," she suggested carefully. The recording of the dragonfly hunt played on the aliens' communication device. The council members watched in stunned silence as the beautiful insects systematically eliminated every fruit fly with mechanical precision. When the recording ended, the council chamber on the alien homeworld was completely silent. For several minutes, no one spoke. "This cannot be natural evolution," Wisdom of Ages finally whispered. "No biological system would develop such efficiency in causing death." Dr. Kevin Ross tried to explain the evolutionary pressures that had shaped Earth's life forms. "Competition is the driving force of evolution on our planet. Creatures that are better at obtaining food and avoiding becoming food are more successful at reproducing." "Avoiding becoming food?" another council member asked in horror. "You mean creatures must constantly fear being consumed by others?" "Captain," Martinez nodded grimly, "every animal on Earth is either predator, prey, or both. It's been that way for millions of years." The alien council members began to understand that Earth wasn't just a planet with some dangerous creatures. It was a world where danger was the fundamental organizing principle of all life. Dr. Linda Foster presented additional data that made the situation even worse. Dragonflies are actually considered beneficial insects on our planet. We think of them as helpful because they control pest populations. "You consider precision killers to be beneficial?" Singing Water asked weakly. "They eat mosquitoes and flies that bother humans," Dr. Foster explained. "From our perspective, they're good to have around." The council members struggled to comprehend. A worldview where efficiency at killing was seen as a positive trait. Dr. Steve Barnes, a paleontologist who had joined the group, made the situation even more disturbing by explaining Earth's deep history. "Dragonflies have actually become less dangerous over time," he said. "Their prehistoric ancestors were much larger and more aggressive. They lived alongside other predatory insects that would seem like monsters by your standards." "Larger?" Wisdom of Ages asked faintly. "Some prehistoric dragonflies had wingspans of over 2 feet. They probably hunted early birds, small reptiles, and primitive mammals." The alien council erupted in musical cries of distress. The idea of dragonfly-sized predators hunting vertebrates was beyond their ability to process calmly. Professor Nancy Green, an expert in comparative biology, tried to provide broader context. "Earth's entire ecosystem is based on predation. Every environment, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains, contains predators that have evolved incredible efficiency at hunting." "Every environment?" Wisdom of Ages asked in despair. "Every one. And many of our predators are much more dangerous than dragonflies." The council members huddled together, speaking rapidly in their musical language. Dr. Blake could see that they were experiencing something like culture shock, but magnified 1,000 times. "Honored humans," Wisdom of Ages finally said, "we must ask you a direct question. Are your people also products of this predatory evolution?" The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. The humans looked at each other nervously, realizing that they were about to reveal something that might terrify these peaceful aliens even more than the dragonflies had. "Humans are omnivores," Dr. Blake said carefully. We eat both plants and animals. And yes, our ancestors were hunters. You consume other living creatures? Singing Water whispered. We hunt animals for food, Captain Martinez confirmed. And our ancestors had to hunt very efficiently to survive. The alien council members stared at the humans with new understanding. They were not just observing predatory insects. They were talking to predatory species. The humans themselves were products of the same evolutionary pressures that had created the dragonflies. How efficient were your ancestors at hunting? Zephlin asked quietly. Dr. Carol Price, a behavioral ecologist, answered the question that sealed humanity's reputation as a terrifying species. Humans are persistence predators. Our ancestors could track and chase prey animals for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Our hunting success rate was nearly 100% once we began the chase. The silence that followed was deafening. The aliens were processing the fact that humans were not just observers of predatory behavior. They were apex predators themselves. You hunted by causing exhaustion and death through relentless pursuit? Wisdom of Ages asked in horror. Our ancestors could run for hours without stopping, Dr. Price explained. Most prey animals are built for short bursts of speed, but humans are built for endurance. We would chase animals until they literally couldn't run anymore. The council members looked at the humans with new eyes. These weren't just peaceful scientists studying insects. These were descendants of creatures that had perfected one of the most psychologically terrifying hunting methods imaginable. And your modern military capabilities? Wisdom of Ages asked weakly. Captain Martinez felt obligated to provide an honest answer. Human military technology is based on the same principles as our biological evolution. We're very good at tracking, pursuing, and eliminating targets. The Alien Council began to understand that Earth's dragonflies were not an exception to the planet's biological development. They were typical examples of how evolution worked on a world where efficiency at killing was rewarded by natural selection. We need time to process this information, Wisdom of Ages announced. The High Council must convene an emergency session to determine how to respond to these revelations. As the communication link closed, the aliens in the museum looked around at the humans with new understanding. They had come to Earth expecting to meet peaceful scientists who studied gentle creatures. Instead, they had discovered that they were surrounded by highly evolved predators who considered precision killing machines to be beneficial insects. Dr. Blake tried to lighten the mood. I hope we haven't frightened you too much. Humans are generally peaceful now. We don't hunt other people, generally peaceful? Zephlin repeated. Well, we still have wars sometimes. Captain Martinez admitted. The aliens looked at each other with expressions of pure terror. They were beginning to realize that they hadn't just discovered a planet with dangerous wildlife. They had found a world populated by apex predators who had developed technology advanced enough for interstellar travel. The paradigm collapse was complete. Everything the Valtharians had believed about the nature of life in the universe had been shattered by a simple demonstration of dragonfly hunting behavior, and they were starting to suspect that the dragonflies were actually among the least dangerous creatures on this terrifying death world called Earth. 3 weeks after the dragonfly demonstration, the Valtharian High Council published what became known throughout the galaxy as the Earth Report. The document was classified at the highest levels and distributed only to species leaders and military commanders across known space. The report began with a simple statement that changed galactic politics forever. The planet designated as Earth is not merely inhabited by predators. It is a world where predation has been refined to levels that approach technological warfare by biological means. Dr. Karen Blake found herself appointed as Earth's first director of interspecies biological education. Her job was to help alien species understand Earth's ecosystem without causing complete psychological breakdown. It was proving to be more difficult than she had expected. The Velfarian research team had requested permission to establish a permanent observation post, Earth, but with strict safety protocols. They studied Earth's predators from behind multiple layers of containment, as if they were observing dangerous weapons rather than animals. We have created new categories in our scientific classification system, Zephyrin explained during one of their regular briefings. Your Earth creatures require terminology that does not exist in our language. He showed Dr. Blake their new classification chart. Instead of the peaceful categories they used for their homeworld creatures, they had developed military-style designations. Precision elimination specialists, pursuit predators, ambush killers, and pack coordination hunters. Dragonflies fall into the precision elimination specialist category, Singing Water explained, along with creatures you call hawks, eagles, and something called a praying mantis that we refuse to study directly. Dr. Blake smiled sadly. The aliens had adapted to Earth's reality, but they would never be comfortable with it. Their peaceful worldview had been permanently shattered by the discovery that beauty and lethality could exist in the same creature. Captain Roy Martinez had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Military Understanding. His new job was to help alien species comprehend that human military capabilities weren't unusually aggressive by galactic standards. They were just the logical result of